Will Levis has got to be the most polarizing prospect in this class. I've seen such a wide range of takes on him, ranging from first overall pick to third rounder. I think both these takes are ridiculous, and naturally I'm somewhere in the middle. But why is it that he's so polarizing? Well, the evaluation is just extremely complicated. How do you evaluate a QB in this offense when Kentucky was just terrible in 2022? And how do you weigh his 2021 season versus 2022 when he was pretty damn good in 2021 and then took a serious step back in 2022? Was it the injury, the offensive coordinator change? There's a lot of unknowns with Levis, which has caused a lot of discourse and disagreement in the draft community. I can't answer a lot of these unknowns for certain, but what I can do is dive into the tape and see what does and doesn't go in his favor. From there, we can only speculate, and we can leave these unknowns to the GMs and scouts who actually get to talk to him and his coaches. Before we get into it, I'll remind all of you to go check out our podcast on Spotify and Anchor, or if you haven't already, and I'd love for this video to get pushed out and for more draft fans to see it, so like it, share it, whatever you gotta do. Now, let's get into the video. I will be rehashing and repeating quite a bit of the same points I made about Levis in my top 5 quarterback video, and that was a serious and long project in its own, so go check it out if you want to see the rest of my rankings and to show some support. But there will be some repetition, but there will be more examples as well. And we're going to organize this video pretty simply. Start with the strengths, move to the weaknesses, and then talk about how it all comes together and how it adds up to him being the prospect that he is. To begin, he has an elite arm. I'm sure you've heard it a million times, but it's true and one of the biggest points of intrigue. It would be in the upper echelon, probably top 10 arms in the NFL on day one. He just has insane arm talent, as the entire field is at his disposal. The velocity and zip he generates on throws is particularly impressive. He's built very well, measuring in at 6'4", 229, and has a great and strong frame that has proven to be battle-tested, as he's taken a ton of hits and been under a ton of pressure behind that horrid Kentucky O-line. He also has a lightning-quick release with smooth mechanics, and he works well in this RPO and quick game, working under 2 different offensive coordinators that both ran pro-style systems, and were both part of the Shanahan-McVay tree. He showed that he can navigate and maneuver bootlegs and play action well, and was legitimately good working off play action and going through his progressions from there. He's actually pretty damn smart and routinely recognized coverages pre-snap and knew exactly where to go with the ball, while also routinely going through his progressions quickly when he saw what he expected. We're going to take a look at this play against Ole Miss this past year. This was probably his best game that I watched from 2022, and we're going to have another play from the same game right after this. Kentucky is lined up in the red zone here, and Levis ends up throwing a touchdown in this play. They're running what I'm just going to call a double post at the field side, with the outside receiver running a deeper post while the tight end runs underneath him, and then the boundary side receiver running a little post corner, which it's basically a go route though. And the defense looks to be in a middle field closed, single high, likely a cover 3 based off the cornerback alignment. It's not a crazy play, but I like it a lot because it just shows a few key traits that Levis consistently showed he could do. First of all, he works this full progression. He starts off to the boundary side and immediately moves off it after he sees the boundary cornerback bail into what looks to me like it ends up being a cover 3, and knows his receiver has no advantage there. He quickly moves to the number 2, the tight end, on the quick post and rips the throw immediately. The second he sees it, he throws that ball, but also accurately, hitting him right out of the break and fitting it perfectly between zone defenders. Smart, accurate, and quick on this play, resulting in a touchdown. I like it. He also threw with anticipation fairly routinely, but specifically over the middle of the field. He was relatively good at throwing his receivers open when the play and the scheme was working, and he did a good job getting the ball out on time to his first read when a receiver came breaking open. This is just an excellent display of anticipation over the middle of the field. It didn't end up being a completion, but it was just a good rep for Levis, and the receiver definitely got tugged here, and the receiver should have caught it anyways. I'm not going to draw out the whole play here, but Ole Miss looks to be in a straight man-to-man cover 1, and the receiver he targets is running what I'll call a deep dig. Maybe it's a post, but it seems a little bit too shallow to be a post. Not only does Levis end up making a nice throw with great timing, he does an excellent job of working from the front side, running out to his right, and with someone right up on his face on the throw, he still ends up working it back to the backside and rips this throw right out of the receiver's break. He decides to throw the ball right here, and while the receiver is still covered, he threads an absolute beauty right to him. That'll do in the NFL. You like to see that he already has experience with this pro-style system and has a real processor in place, and he should be able to find early success in this type of offense, working off play action in an offense where he can use his quick release and quick processing ability, and where a coach can simplify and fasten the reads for him. And while his accuracy is questionable, as we'll get to in depth later, his short and quick accuracy isn't affected as much by his inconsistencies, and is generally reliable here. He has good mobility and can move quite well despite not having great straight line speed. He has more than enough mobility to get on the move outside the pocket and create problems for a defense as he moved the pocket and changed the launch point for him. And while his accuracy is horribly inconsistent, he did have a ton of elite high-level NFL throws on film, showing that he is fully capable of elite accuracy and ball placement. You just wonder if he'll be able to harness his arm at the next level. You also have to applaud him for somehow having success in putting up decent numbers in the disaster and hellstorm that was the Kentucky offense. It's some of the worst O-line play I've ever seen in my entire life, and the receivers desperately struggled to create any type of separation. I give him credit for somehow finding success here, and there's validity to this common excuse. So what are the issues? To keep it short, he's got some serious ones. They're not that complicated though, and they're pretty straightforward and obvious. They're just so brutal. And the most glaring one is his accuracy. As I just mentioned, there are a lot of high-level throws on tape for him, and there's certainly flashes. He is capable of being accurate and precise from all platforms. There's just no semblance of consistency. I said this in my QB video, but he's a loose cannon. His tape is just flooded with bad throws, and he's all over the place, and honestly, there really is no way to predict when he's going to be accurate or inaccurate. His mechanics are mostly smooth and fluid too, so I don't think that it can be attributed to poor mechanics, like for example I said Anthony Richardson's could in the QB video. I think he's just isn't a consistent pinpoint passer. You love to see if he can smooth this out at the next level. I'm never going to say prospect can't improve at certain traits, but it's hard to project how much it will improve or if it ever will improve in the NFL. You might just have to live with it. And then his other biggest weakness to me is his pocket presence. There are a lot of definitions for pocket presence, but the way I define it is basically how well do they naturally sense pressure and are able to subtly manipulate the pocket to find the soft spots to stay strong in the pocket. Like how well do they work on their feet and smoothly navigate the pocket while staying calm in the face of pressure. And while Levis was under constant pressure and showed he could absolutely stick in the pocket and take a hit, the rest of this area is brutal. He just stood there a lot of the time, and there was just a serious lack of escapability and navigation within the pocket, when either wait to bail until it was far too late, or he would look down at the rush and waltz right into pressure and just oftentimes would leave receivers open on the field. He very clearly did not have that valuable innate sense for pressure and was relatively oblivious to it. He's also clunky on his feet and isn't really agile at all. He labors around the pocket, and even when he moves outside the pocket, and he's just nowhere near the twitchy athlete that a Bryce Young is. This is a trait that usually translates to the NFL as well, and I worry if he'll make the necessary improvements in this aspect of his game. Again, I'm not saying he can't improve here, I'm just not too optimistic he will. I'll give him a bit of credit and say that he should be used to the amount of pressure he'll face in the NFL because of how much he faced at Kentucky, and that battle-tested experience should definitely help him, and the game might even seem slower to him, as crazy as it may sound. I mean, that Kentucky offense was truly brutal, but this should definitely help him, though that doesn't mean he was great at avoiding the pressure and extending the play, as he also just doesn't have great instincts for play extension, and oftentimes he ended up taking a sack even if there was a chance to get out of the pocket and get on the move and keep the play alive. Simply put, I worry about his instincts as a QB and this natural stuff that he just didn't show at Kentucky. The last thing I'm worried about is his decision making. This is not as much of a true weakness, more so just a glaring inconsistency. And it is Carson Wentz-esque, and I don't like doing pro comps, but this would be my comparison for Will Levis if I had to give him one. He generally makes good decisions, he's generally safe with the ball, and he usually would know when a play is dead, and he would just get rid of it. But then there were those brain-dead moments where he would make you question all of reality and just what the hell he was doing. He had his fair share of just effort throws, and there were also some post-snap processing struggles, though this wasn't heavily present, but it was particularly often relatively often when he didn't get what he expected, and the bullets started flying. There were some missed opportunities and straight up bad reads here. I'm going to highlight this play as an example because it's pretty ugly and one of the plays that comes to mind when thinking of his bad reps. It's just poor process all around. I don't like the decision, which is then compounded by an inaccurate throw. And if he's going to test the deep shot here, I'd much rather him test the backside go route. It's a simple 4 verts from Kentucky against a simple cover 5 or cover 2 man from Georgia. All around, it's about as simple as you can get in football. It's an extremely tight window that needs a perfect throw to that back corner of the end zone. And like I said, I would have much preferred testing the other vertical if you're going to test one of these outside routes. It's just not a great matchup for Kentucky either, as all the receivers are pretty locked up, but this was just such a risky window to test, and also not anywhere near the throw should be. If nothing's there, I'd rather him maybe get out the pocket, extend the play, or scramble, or just not this, because it ends up in an interception, a big return for Georgia. And also it was also in a really bad situation. They had a chance to tie the game or go up, and instead he throws an interception. Just a really rough spot for Levis. However, because he was mostly good in terms of processing ability and his general IQ, I'm not too worried here. There is bad on his film, but there's also a lot of good on there as well. So I'm optimistic that he'll definitely improve and clean things up here. So what does it all mean exactly? Levis came out to be my QB4 and safely lower than Stroud and Richardson in terms of grades. I still view him as a first-round prospect, but with a lot of concerns and issues. I'm just not there with the top 5 to 10 hype with him. I know he'll go in that range, and I get it. He's a quarterback, which is the most valuable position in football. But I don't think he's there as a prospect in terms of true talent. Like, if I made a big board, I don't think he would be in my top 10. There's just a lot of projection with Levis, especially with his accuracy. He's also going to be a 24-year-old rookie, which scares me considering the development that he still requires. Then, taking into account the train wreck that Kentucky was and a foot injury in 2022, how do you evaluate all of this and take it into account when scouting him? There's just too many uncertainties, and personally, I'm not sure how comfortable I am taking the risk on him. I wouldn't be psyched about starting him on day one, but I think he'd be fine. There would definitely be some growing pains, though. My biggest concerns come down to the fact that will he be a consistent enough passer to be an elite starter in the NFL, or even good starter in the NFL? And will he be able to work and thrive in NFL pockets that are going to be muddy and messy, like they were at Kentucky? Hopefully his experience with this will only benefit him, and he will end up growing here. Some fits that I like for him as well are, I really like Indianapolis, actually. I think that's a pretty good fit for him. That's the biggest one that comes to mind. I think Las Vegas is a pretty good fit for him. Give him Josh McDaniels to develop him. And Josh McDaniels, again, historically is with Tom Brady with the quick passing game, kind of like that. I think Levis will really succeed there. Play action. I think Levis will actually really succeed under Josh McDaniels. I think that would be a good... I would like that pick for the Raiders. Those are the two big ones I can think of, is the Colts and the Raiders. Maybe the Bucks if he falls within striking distance for them, but mainly I'd be looking at the Colts and the Raiders. I think the Raiders are actually I'm just thinking this on the spot now. I think the Raiders are my favorite fit for him, though. But to conclude, the upside and excitement with Will Levis is real. The only question is, will he be able to overcome his fatal flaws and live up to where he will be picked?